Hello, this is Stephen L. We are back with another Batman 66 episode review. Today we'll be reviewing the episode The Riddler's False Notion, which is the part 2 in the Riddler's final appearance of season 1. So with that out of the way, let's get to the episode. To recap, the Riddler's on a crime spree, which is themed after the old silent films. He has captured Robin and plans to essentially saw him in half as he is unconscious, slowly going towards a buzzsaw. We do the usual opening credits, and then we go back to where we last left off. We go back to Batman, who is at Van Jones's party, where he is host, where Batman has come out along with Gordon, and they both realize Robin has disappeared. Next thing you know, out of the Batmobile, two bazookas are essentially fired out with two riddles. When is a bear like a fallen tree? Lumber. The answer to that is lumber. And when is silt like grass? Because you measure each by the yard. You realize Robin must be held at the lumber yard. Batman makes his way there. As soon as he enters, he sees the Riddler, who is dressed in a costume that is a homage to old school silent films. As Batman's getting closer to Riddler, he shouts out a riddle: when is a man like a stupid relative? Eventually, Batman turns and sees Robin getting close to the buzzsaw. He then ditches Riddler to go and save Robin. But it looks like Batman's too late. Or is he? He then remembers the riddle: when is a man like a stupid relative? When he's a mannequin. He then realizes that Robin is not Robin, it's just a dummy. Riddler's disappeared, but Paulie is still up there. Batman then corners her and essentially arrests her. They try to get information out of her where Riddler is, but they can't figure out where. They can't really get anything out of her. Batman realizes that the only alternative in order to find Robin and stop Riddler is to take Paulie back to the Batcave to interrogate her. But he also takes Gordon there as a witness to make sure that his methods, don't bounce back on him in court. He then uses bat gas to knock out both Paulie and Commissioner Gordon, and they go to the Batcave. As soon as they get there, he wakes Gordon up, and Gordon is immediately astounded to the Batcave. I'm not sure anyone would be. This is, I think, one of the few moments in any form of media where Gordon is actually inside the Batcave. Even comics to a degree, at least by this point in time. Of course, the admiration for the Batcave has to be cut short, as they now have to interrogate Pauline. They then set up this oxygen mask over her, along with some chemicals, in order to do a test to see whether that when they interrogate her, what she said is true, and to not be harmful, so Batman will not be in trouble when he goes to court. During the interrogation with Pauline, Batman asks where's Riddler, but he said she doesn't know, but he did give her two riddles. When are men above board, which the answer calls chessmen, and another riddle, which the answer is spectacles. They then take the oxygen mask and test the air contents, which helps determine that she told the truth. They then knock her out. But just as Gordon gets in the Batmobile, he stops and asks, what do those riddles mean? And Batman says, simple. Riddler's whole caper has been about silent films. He plans to do a spectacle, but which was something that a famous silent film star Harold Lloyd used to do, usually found, on top of buildings. And he plans to do it at a chessman building. Batman, of course, knocks Gordon out with bat gas, of course, and quickly drives, puts them on the side of the road with the gas to wake them up, and keeps driving to the chessman building. We then cut to Robin Robin and the Riddler, and Riddler plans to push Robin and have him fall to his death. But just as he's about to do it, Batman arrives in time and saves Robin, but the Riddler and his crew quickly get away. Just as this is happening, the Riddler and his crew are getting away. The Riddler writes in writing in the sky 2 riddles. What vehicle has ears? The answer to that is a train. They have engine ears. And why do men wear tight belts? Simple, to hold up their pants. They then come to the conclusion that the Riddler plans to pull a train robbery. Realizing that, there's this old train that the old silent film stars used to take. Realize that must be where to go, but Riddler is giving them false clues. And with Batman and Robin heading the other direction of town, the Riddler, dressed in a cowboy suit, heads to Van Jones's place and shows him his silent film of Batman. After watching it, Van Jones then plans to give the Riddler a check for the film and put it to be part of his collection. And just as he's opening the vault, Riddler gets out a gun. And I just like how Frank Gorshin just says this riddle. He doesn't tell him to put his hands up. He has to have a riddle about him putting his hands up, which I absolutely love. And just as that's happening, we found out what the Riddler's plan was. He doesn't plan to... What he plans to do, in order to get more money, he plans to steal every single silent film he has and ransom it back. And then he calls his whole crew in, who will also dress up like cowboys, and they plan to take all the silent films and get away. And just as that's happening, Batman arrives. And it turns out, even though the riddle was intentionally meant to send them in the opposite direction, Batman managed to deduce that it was also a reference to the Great Train Holdup, a famous silent film, and one of the very few existing prints is in the Van Jones safe. And a bat fight breaks out in the Riddler's attempt to quickly get away along with his crew. However, they lose the fight and they're immediately subdued. Batman and Robin end victoriously. We then end the episode with Aunt Harriet and Alfred prepared to go for a celebration. It's Aunt Harriet's birthday, but she's wondering why is Alfred, stalling. It turns out because they didn't want her to miss their surprise, and that surprise is Batman and Robin running into the living room to essentially wish her a happy birthday. They both kiss her on the cheek, and then quickly run out. And that's how we essentially end our episode, on a nice light-hearted note. And tune in, and they say that next week Batman and Robin will be tangling with the Penguin. For me, Batman here, like how he almost loses it with Robin being captured, kind of reminds me how he was with Bookworm, just showing how much he truly cares about Robin. And how and I must admit, this part and the two-part of Robin kind of fades into the background here, doesn't play much of a role, but I do like how they have that little scene with Aunt Harriet. Speaking of Aunt Harriet, she was just a nice joy in that little scene there, along with Alfred. I kind of feel that these two characters secretly like each other, in my personal opinion. Commissioner Gordon here and Chief Harriet are kind of the bumbling imbecile cops are really starting to really show now. But I like how Gordon gets to enter the Batcave, which, from my knowledge, very few times in all of medium Gordon has ever done it. I mean, this is probably the first time, but if you think about it, it's rare for the character to ever do that. Frank Gorshin as the Riddler. When you look at it, for this and the movie, this is from the TV show, this is the last time he'll be making his appearance for quite a long time. He'll be completely absent from season 2. For me, Frank Gorshin is the Riddler. He has this magnetic personality, and I like how this caper it is for him. And to be fair, most criminals will probably just go to Van Jones' place and rob it. But again, for the Riddler, the joy of his crimes is a sort of to outwit Batman. To have this long charade works for him. And him coming dressed up in a western and a cowboy suit, again, because this is a silent film caper, nearly all the costumes he wears are referenced to the silent films. And for me, that works for Frank Gorshin as an actor. And he is a scene stealer, and for me, this is probably the best Riddler episode. The Riddler's False Notion is, for me, a good two-parter, and along with its first part, Death in Slow Motion, it's not some of the greatest episodes, not just of Season 1, it's not just one of the greatest episodes of The Riddler, it's also in my opinion, the top 10 greatest episodes in the series. For me, considering it'll be a long time before Frank Gorshin would return to the role of the Riddler, he wouldn't come back till Season 3, and he'll be completely absent from Season 2, for me, considering that this is his last episode. Now, to be fair, he does appear in the movie, but if you think of it from the TV show standpoint, this is his last appearance before he eventually returns. And if he was never to return, this would have been one hell of an episode for him to go out on. And I just love it. For me, this is not just episodes that were good for Frank Gorshin as his talents. It was good for the Riddler character, and I like the tons of references to the silent film era. However, I would like to point out that they could have just had, at the end, when Batman said, instead of saying the Great Train Hold Up, because was a reference to the Great Train Robbery, which was an actual silent film. That's my only gripe. I don't get why they couldn't have done that. But, again, other than that, and that's a very little nitpick, I have really no problems with this. This is a really good... These two-parters are absolutely solid and should be a worth watch to any Batman fan of the 66 continuity. And there we have it, The Riddler's False Notion, Part 2, for the final appearance of the Riddler of Season 1, and will be a long time before Frank Gorshin will return in the role of the Riddler for the entire series. Join us next time as we review the final two-part episode of Season 1, when Batman and Robin tangle with the infamous bird of prey, the Penguin. So tune in next time for the same Steven hour, same Steven channel, the same Steven time. And ladies and gentlemen, so long for now.